episode of the Football Culture Podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing a topical issue. Recently, Villarreal and Barcelona were due to play a La Liga match in Miami, but that has been cancelled by La Liga due to protests by the players who were unhappy that they weren't consulted. However, in Italy, Serie A are pressing ahead with their plans to play AC Milan against Como in Australia. So who better to discuss that situation than Federico from our Milan episode, who is a fan of one of the teams that will be playing in that match, AC Milan. Federico, how are you?
Hey, James. Happy to be back. I'm great, apart from the fact that my team will have to play on the other side of the world, but that's for us to discuss now.
Okay, yeah. So I take it you're not in favour, but we'll come to that. Okay, so first of all, how did this come about? I mean, La Liga have said that they need to compete with the Premier League. They're saying that the Premier League has too much money, which is true. There is, the TV rights are very, very high, where you've got a club like Bournemouth that are probably richer than some of the biggest clubs in Spain. So why has Serie A decided to play, first of all, play a match abroad? And secondly, why have they chosen Australia of all places?
Well, I think that we need to bring the clock back a good 20, 25 years. I think that the Italian league has always tried to sell the product abroad the way they could. For example, our Italian Super Cup is being played overseas or outside of Italy for, again, almost 25 years now. They started weirdly with Libya. I remember Juve and Parma playing in Tripoli, and then China, and then now they're playing in Saudi Arabia. They have been playing in many different places. And I think we did the mistake of undermining the importance of the cup itself, which doesn't mean much for Italian fans, to be honest. But I guess we didn't understand that we were letting them spark a fire we should have not let them do. And now we are facing this Italian league games starting to be played abroad. And the way this started, meaning the Milan Como game being played in Australia, it started from rumors, as always. I think it was during the summer, some people started rumoring about it and saying, they are considering, given we have the Olympics in Milan and San Siro will be busy for the inaugural show and other activities, they might they didn't say they could consider, they might be forced to play somewhere else. But when they were mentioning Australia, we were all like, shrugging our heads and say, why Australia? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And then it started getting more serious throughout the first weeks of the season and until it was properly announced. And the first reaction was, I don't really get why, of all places, choosing Australia first, because it's true that there is some following there. And that last summer we went touring in Perth and we played some friendly matches as well. But of all places, I would have imagined, I don't know, Southeast Asia, maybe the US, like Spain did for Barcelona, Villarreal. Australia is a really weird decision to me. And of course, in general, I don't agree with this. But even more with bringing players 20, 25 hours of flight away, making them play completely jet-lagged against their will with, I guess, no atmosphere or less atmosphere. I really don't see how this can be productized as an asset for our league. I don't see the value. That's the main concern. And then, of course, as a season ticket holder, I'm like, why should I accept that one of the games I paid for is not going to be played in Milan? And that's the whole scenario that led us to where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think about as to why they might be holding it in Australia is because there are a lot of people of Italian heritage in Australia. I mean, for example, Christian Vieri, born in Australia, obviously played for Italy. And I didn't know this when he was actually playing. I only found out after he retired, but he was a very, very good cricketer, which is not an Italian thing at all and is very much an Australian thing. And he was like, you know, speaking English with an Australian accent. And it was like, no, he was, you know, he grew up in Australia. But then again, usually the money men are looking to break emerging markets. But if you've got a lot of people who are of Italian descent in Australia, you don't really have to sell the idea of Italian football to them. Surely they're already fans of these clubs. So yeah, it on the one hand, that's the only reason why I can think as to why they would have done it in Australia of all places. But at the same time, it does seem strange. You would think, you know, somewhere in the Far East would be perhaps more lucrative. I mean, I understand why La Liga play in Miami because there's a huge Spanish-speaking population there. Yeah, so that makes sense. But yeah, playing a Serie A match in Australia seems weird. It's interesting you mentioned that they set a precedent with the Italian Super Cup, because in the last, I think maybe 5 or 6 years, I'm not quite sure, the Spanish Super Cup has been played in Saudi Arabia.
That's it.
Yeah, and we have Gerard Piqué to thank for that because his company brokered the deal. And I remember I've not watched a single Super Cup match because there's 2 reasons why I'm against it. One, it's being played in Saudi Arabia. How can it be the Spanish Super Cup if you're playing it in Saudi Arabia? Point one. And point 2, it used to be the league champions against the Copa del Rey winners. But they've done it so the second and third qualify in La Liga. So they've designed it so that Real Madrid and Barcelona will be there even if they don't win the league or the cup.
And they designed it also to have as many games as possible. Exactly.
Now, a lot of Betis fans, like for Real Madrid and Barcelona fans, it's perhaps not much of an issue. And there's going to be lots of Real Madrid and Barcelona fans in Saudi Arabia. There's probably not going to be any or many Real Betis fans there. But for Betis fans who had gone, I think it was 18 years without winning a trophy, it was a long time for a big club. The Betis fans were excited about the possibility of playing in the Super Cup, you know, a chance of another trophy, even though it's a minor one. You know, when you're as starved as Betis were, you know, another trophy is, you still want it. And a lot of the Betis fans were really, really disappointed that it was being played in Saudi Arabia because a lot of them couldn't go. They couldn't follow the team. And me personally, whenever they play the Spanish Super Cup now, I used to watch it. Now I refuse to watch it. I just don't want anything to do with it because it doesn't feel authentic. You know, I mean, I'm not, you know, this is nothing against the people of Saudi Arabia, because usually when you talk about these things, you know, you often see stuff on Twitter like you're being racist, you know, like saying that, you know, we can't have football in our country, or you're against our country because, you know, of some of the laws and our human rights record and stuff like that. It's nothing against that particular country. It's just the Italian Super Cup or the Spanish Super Cup should be played, in my opinion, in the country of its origin. For the fans of those clubs that have been going to support them for years, and not just fans in Saudi Arabia who like Real Madrid or Barcelona because they watch them on TV, they've got good players and they win things, which is basically the reason why people in other countries support these super clubs, you know, like Juve or Bayern or Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, you know, etc. So it seems as if Spain, just like Italy, was dipping its toe in the water with the Super Cup being abroad. It's like, let them get used to this with something small and then we'll make it bigger, you know, we'll grow it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So you mentioned the San Siro is being used for the Winter Olympics. Why do you think they've selected Milan? So I've got my theories as to why Villarreal and Barcelona were selected. It was a Villarreal home game. Villarreal are a team from a small pueblo, a small town in the Valencian region, who are owned by the guy who owns Mercadona, which is a huge supermarket company here. So he's spent a lot of money on the team. So he's put a lot of money in, and he's grown a very, very small club who are playing in the amateur leagues into a Champions League team.
I guess it's similar to what Sassuolo is in Italy, like huge entrepreneur takes his childhood team, pumps in a lot of money, makes them a League One team. Not many fans, but still they have enough money to survive, and they don't really care about tradition and stuff like that.
Exactly. And the interesting thing with Villarreal is, though, it's not his childhood team. He's actually a Valencia fan, but he tried to become the president of Valencia, lost out to his brother, and said, okay, I'll go and buy another team and do my thing there. So yeah, so it almost feels like he's trying to get one back on his brother. But anyway, so Villarreal don't really have a huge fan base. So if you select a Champions League team who don't have a lot of fans, then you're not going to get so many protests from the Villarreal fans. Yeah. And the Liga was offering to pay for their season ticket holders to go to the game. So it's kind of, they're trying to bribe them with a holiday, a vacation, and pay for it. Barcelona are selected, obviously, because they're a huge name. But Milan are a huge club, so we can understand why they would want, Milan, Inter, Juve, failing that, Napoli, Roma, someone on the lower tier of huge clubs to play this match. But Milan could be something of a risk, because it's got a huge fan base. It's not like taking Sassuolo to play Milan as the away side, so that the Milan fans might not, be so angry about it. It's actually a Milan home game. And Milan get what, 60, 70,000 fans per game. Why do you think they chose Milan?
Well, I think that overall AC Milan is still the biggest brand we have in terms of, global recognition, because they were really successful in the 90s and the 2000s. So I think it is the easiest selling machine, maybe together with Juve, but Juve didn't manage to win that much in Europe in the last years, and Inter as well. I think that AC Milan is still, thanks to the Berlusconi era, a global brand, and that's why I think they were chosen over Inter, for example. And also Como, it might be casual, but it might not, because Como is another interesting story, because they were bought by these Indonesian brothers. Thierry Henry and Cesc Fabregas are also part of the company. Like, they are building up a pretty interesting project there, so they might be the perfect sparring partner for this game as well. To be fair with them, both their fans and Fabregas as coach protested against this game, and they did more than the AC Milan club and the coach did. I think that from a, let's say, capitalistic standpoint, AC Milan makes sense as a choice. Again, you said before that there is a lot of people from Italian heritage in Australia, which is true. But I don't necessarily agree on the fact that there is so much football frenzy in Australia to justify this game. The fact that there are a lot of AC Milan supporters around the world makes me proud, because, of course, it means that we did something great and we resonated with people around the globe with different cultures and different heritages. For example, I spent some years ago with the AC Milan club in New York, and I watched the game with them because I was there on holiday, and you could really feel that they really belonged. Like, they loved the AC Milan. They were not just there because we were winning, because we were not when I was there. But we never had a discussion about, you should bring AC Milan here to New York. They were dreaming about coming to San Siro, because that's the experience. Like, if I want to watch AC Milan, I want to get the whole package. I want to see the stadium. I want to see the fans. That's what makes the football experience in Italy what it is. Having a part of that, flying over to where you live, completely stunned by the jet lag, completely not wanting to be there, with stadiums that are not used for football. Sometimes they are using stadiums that are for rugby, for example. Like, I don't really see how this experience can be an experience. So I think that this is where they are losing focus when deciding to do this. Of course, the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, were the perfect excuse. But what makes me completely angry is that they are trying to make us look stupid when they say, we were looking for alternative stadiums and we could not find any. And I'm like, come on, guys, there is a stadium every 20 kilometers in here. Like, you need to go to Australia. You want to tell me that there is no place in Italy where you can play this match? But of course, it was an excuse. And the fact that they were trying to make us look silly made it even more bitter for us to digest. Just be honest. We want to make some money. And in the end, it's not that much money, because I was checking and I think they will make around 10 million euros that they have to split. Of course, they have to spend some money to go there, and I think it's a few million. Then they have to split the earnings with the other 18 teams from Serie A. And then what's left will be split in, I think it's 70-30 AC Milan Como. But it's peanuts. It's nothing. Like, if we had played that match in Milan, most probably the tickets would have made the same price. So it's weird. It's absolutely weird. And I think they don't maybe they do understand, but they are missing the point. Like, what makes Premier League the best league in the world? Because there's a lot of good teams, there's a lot of good players, but there's no reason for any Premier League team to fly abroad and play a league match there. You want to see the Premier League? Switch on your TV or take a flight and come to England. That's about it. What I think AC Milan is trying to do, and the Serie A is trying to do, is to convince people that our level of football is good. I mean, all the bigger teams have been touring throughout the summer, sometimes at Christmas time, Far East, US, Middle East, just to make them see that we are a competitive league still, and then we can be an enjoyable thing to watch. Bringing this match around I don't think it's going to be really an asset for the future earnings of the league. But I might be wrong. I mean, in this globalized world, anything can happen. And I'm sorry for the Australian fans, because, for example, we have a fan club in Perth, and they released this statement where they said, guys, you had AC Milan every week for 100 years plus. Leave us AC Milan for one day, and it will make our life better. And in a way, I understand it, because, of course, I support some American teams from NBA or NHL, and I would be happy to have them once in a while here. But it will not be the same as when I got there and saw that there in their place with that atmosphere. So I don't really understand what they are looking for in that match. I think it will look like a friendly. I don't see any competitiveness, to be honest.
Well, 100%. I mean, pretty much everyone I've spoken to, it feels like a pre-season friendly. I mean, coming back to the point about, them saying, let us have AC Milan just for one day. In my view, they're not getting AC Milan, because they're not getting San Siro. They're not getting the Milan fans. They're not getting the city. They're not getting the pre-match experience. When one of the best things about football travel is, okay, I support Real Betis. I've been to Milan. Both of them are extremely enjoyable experiences, but they're different experiences, and it's important to enjoy those experiences. If Real Betis was playing in Australia, a match like this, you're not going to get Real Betis, because you're not going to get the stadium. You're not going to get the neighborhood. You're not going to get people's pre-match routines. You're not going to get everything that goes around it. You're not going to get the food that you would get, before the match. Like a Saranito, which is a Seville sandwich. You're not going to get all those little things. Or the Cruz Campo beer, even though a lot of people in Spain don't like it. I like it, but like, you're not even going to get maybe the bad beer in some people's opinion.
It is absolutely like that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and this is the thing. And I think the comparison with US sports doesn't really stand up, because US sports play in other countries, yes, but culturally it's very different. Like a lot of US sports are franchises. Football clubs, whether they're in England, Spain, Italy, anywhere in Europe, whether they're in Latin America, whether they're in Mexico, these clubs have deep roots within their communities and the local culture. You know, they're, you know, in American sports, you don't have things like ultras. You don't have Barras Bravas. You don't have some clubs like St. Pauli that are political on the left. You know, you don't have some clubs like, I don't know, Hansa Rostock in Germany that have a you know, a reputation for right-wing politics. You know, there isn't all of these nuanced things like traditionally in Seville, Real Betis, working class, Sevilla, you know, middle and upper class. That's not the case anymore. Just as a caveat before any Sevistas start messaging me saying that's not true. But you know what I mean? Football clubs had roots in different cultural things that US sports don't really have. It's a very different experience. So you can kind of take an American sport and move it somewhere, and it doesn't lose quite as much.
I think that you are right when you say that, of course, the European culture of sports is completely different, but I think in the US they took it away a bit from them. Because I've been a few times to the US watching sports, because I think it is still a great experience overall, even though maybe you don't get those nuances you were mentioning in the stadium. I mean, you can get them outside of the stadium. Like when you go to Boston, for example, or Chicago, there are bars where you can get that. And there's people that say, I don't go to the stadium anymore because what they're selling there doesn't resonate with me anymore. So I prefer to come to this bar, watch the game with my friends, and they are crazy about sports. I think that, and this is the dangerous part, they are trying to transform the European sports into what the American model is right now. Like any fan is a customer, it is replaceable, they don't care about who you are, loyalty doesn't mean anything anymore. We just want you to consume as much as possible within the football ground. So San Siro now officially since yesterday is not part of the municipality anymore. It has been officially sold to AC Milan and Inter. And they want it to become Disneyland. They want it to become a place where you go with your family, have some food, watch a movie, and then, if there is any spare time, you can also watch the match. But, sorry, it's that model that scares me, like turning sports into a product. And of course, I'm not that innocent and naive. Sports have always been productized somehow, but there has to be a limit. There needs to come a moment where we draw a line and we say, you don't get past this line. And I think we are running pretty quickly towards that line right now, because the football experience, the San Siro experience, and I think we discussed about it when I was in with the Milan episode. Nowadays, going to San Siro means that you have to face the fact that maybe 1/3 of the people you have around you is a tourist, which can be okay if they enjoy the experience and get soaked into it, and they be part of that. But at the same time, it can make it lighter for us, because of course you have less people that really care about the team and the game, and more people that are just there to enjoy and soak in with the experience, but they just don't have any real interest in the team winning or the atmosphere being at its top. By losing control of where they play, what kind of stadium we have, the prices, we are just basically slowly, well, not even that much slowly anymore, losing control of our club. And I don't think there is an happy ending here. I wish that at a certain point people will say enough and that huge protest will begin. But right now it feels a bit, how can I say? it's scary that nobody is really doing anything about it right now. We are complaining on the internet a lot. We are complaining in the stadium between us a lot, but there is no organized movement to stop this inevitable downhill we are going through.
Well, this is an interesting point. So, for listeners that know about Italian culture, football culture, they'll know all about the ultras movement. I mean, some listeners may not. I'd be very surprised if you listen to this podcast and you don't know about the ultras movement. But the ultras movement in Italy traditionally has been very strong and has, some ultras have had huge holds on the owners of the club. Like if you don't give us this, we will make life difficult for you in the stadium, and ruin your product, as it were. Mm-hmm. What is the situation with the ultras at the moment? Are the ultras doing anything about this situation? And if not, why not?
Well, the situation in Milan is particularly tricky at the moment because there were some arrests and basically a lot of bans at the beginning of the season on both sides, Inter and Milan. And there are some criminality scandals involved as well. Like, it's particularly complex. So I think that, for example, when last season the AC Milan Ultras protested against the club ownership, and really seriously, they did a very effective choreo with "Go Home," like a huge "Go Home" sign, which was really powerful to me. And then they made also a protest in front of the club, the clubhouse. They made them pay really hard for that. And some of the main guys are not allowed to be in the stadium anymore, but not because of police, because of the club. Like they were told their season tickets are taken away indefinitely. And for example, the banners are not allowed anymore. They had to change names for the groups in order for the banners to be let in. The first 5 or 6 games of the season, both Milan and Inter were not, the ultras were not in the stadium as a sign of protest. And James, I'm not kidding, that month without the ultras made me consider not to go to the stadium anymore. I was like, if this is the future, I don't want to be part of that. Because San Siro it felt like we were at the cinema, like complete silence, no interest whatsoever. Even the players said, this is not what we want. Like, Luka Modric came to AC Milan this summer. He came because he said when he was a kid, he was watching AC Milan on the tele. He loved the atmosphere, he loved San Siro, he loved the players. He was dreaming of playing here, which is, of course, flattering for us. After a couple of games with no ultras, he went to there was an image. He was going to a teammate and saying, "Is it always like this? What's going on here?" And the teammate explained, "No, these guys are protesting. Usually, it's really hot in here. There is a lot of atmosphere." And the rumor is that he went to the club and said, "Guys, let them in. Like, we cannot play this way." And other players did the same. When they came back, the first game was Milan-Napoli, so a big game. And it felt like living again. Like, wow, that's San Siro. Like, now we're talking. And when I think of playing an AC Milan match abroad, I think of the atmosphere we had in that month. And I'm like, you don't want to watch that and think that's the normality of the Serie A matches. That's absolutely not the case. But going back to your question, I think that at the moment the ultras are not able to protest the way they would love to, because they know they are walking on thin ice right now. And if they protest, they are going to pay a price for that. That being said, I think that the regular fans should step in as well and say that this is not acceptable. So I think that it's unfair for regular fans to always rely on the ultra section to do something about stuff. Because in the end, we are all fans. We should all be responsible for what's happening with our club. And maybe it's time for us to to do our part, and hopefully we will do it, but so far nothing has really happened.
Do you think that because there's been a shift in not just in Italy but globally with foreign ownership? So back in the day, Italian clubs were owned by Italians, like Milan, the classic example, Berlusconi. Do you think that these foreign owners, these Americans, these investment funds, do you think they're more prepared to take on the ultras than the local owners in the past?
Yeah, partially yes, I guess, but mainly because they don't care. Like, if you are owned by an hedge fund, they don't necessarily care about football tradition. Actually, I think that you need to put the ultras discussion needs to stay on two different levels. There is the violence part and there is the support part. I think that any ownership wants a stadium like San Siro when it's in a proper shape and a lot of noise and a lot of flags and banners and people chanting. Like, that's something that makes you a better product to sell. So that's why I think that they agreed to bring them back, because they felt it was something missing from the experience that could be detrimental for the part that they care about.
Marketing.
But violence is a problem, and criminals are a problem. Luckily, there are only a few examples in Italy of criminals owning football firms. But of course, it's bad publicity for any club. Violence in general, it's going down in the last years. There are not those many episodes anymore, let alone in the stadium. I don't think I have seen clashes into San Siro for, 30 years. Like, into the stadium, there's almost nothing anymore. There have been some scuffles here and there around the stadium, but nothing major. But still, I feel that that's the problem. Like, if violence is still in the picture, these new properties will not tolerate it. Like, that's the baseline. The problem is that you cannot replace the ultras in 5 minutes with people that don't care about violence and they just want to support. It's not that easy. And I think that element of danger that you find in the ultra section is what makes people want to go there. Like, I don't know if I'm being clear, but when you are a small kid and maybe you are in your teen, you are attracted by that, and violence as well. Like, you want to be part of that energy. And if you switch to something lighter, like, we just support, we are nice people, we don't want to insult the others, we just want to support our team, that's the American way of supporting, which is shit. Like, when I look at the MLS games and I look at the supporter sections, it's cringe. Like, it's so bad to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
It's it's true what you say. When you're younger, it's like, it's the excitement of it. I mean, it's like when I was younger, all of that was exciting, and I thought I would stand behind the goal, for the rest of my life. But now I find myself sat in the side stands. There was always the joke in sort of English football back in the day when we had standing areas that until you're 30, you stand on the terrace behind the goal, the Kop, the Stretford end, whatever it is. And then you get into your 30s and then you move into the main stand, down the side, because you've got more money to afford a better view and more comfort. You can afford it because you're progressing with your working life, but also as well as, like, you don't want to stand up and sing and shout and drink 10 beers anymore. You want to have 2 beers and sit down and watch the game and look at the tactics and the formation and all of the more technical aspects of the game. You become more mellow as you get older. And then, that happens to us all. I find myself.
I think it's part of life in general. I mean, there are times where you want to eat life all, you want to take it all, you want to live it 100%, and you don't want to leave anything in the tank. And then you grow older, you did your part, you are, as you said, you have a bit more money, you are a bit more tired, and you're going to pay a price if you have 10 beers. So it changes, but it doesn't change the relationship you have with the club. I was thinking about it some days ago and discussed it with my friends at the stadium. I'm not any less in love with AC Milan. I don't suffer any less, even though I'm standing in the main stand, as opposed to when I was an Ultras. But when I went, for example, last year, and almost every year we do it, when we play the away derby, of course, we have the away section, which is our usual Ultras section. And so we all go there because that's the only affordable place when Inter is playing home. And every time we go there, it's like, yeah, that's not my place anymore. Like, I could not do it as I was doing it before. But still, like, the passion is the same. The wanting to be there is the same. The bond with the club is absolutely the same. And I think that's what's never going to go away. Like, even if tomorrow the new stadium will be horrible and they will make any measures to make the loyal fans go away from the stadium, I think that the passion will not go away anyway. We will just go to a different place, watch the game with some friends, as they do in the US. Like, you get together with your mates, you watch the game, you have fun, you go home, you love your club anyway. It makes me a bit scared that we might have to do that, in fact, because of course I want to be in the stadium. That's where I think the magic happens. But there's no way they're going to take away our club from us. That's something I know for sure. And on the longer term, a stadium without loyal fans will not be a good experience for anybody. That's my hope, at least. But I think it was pretty obvious at the start of the season when the Ultras were not there. Like, if that's the future model, I'm sleeping like a kid tonight, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about now is what, I think that these hedge funds just don't understand. It's all about brands and marketing, and for them, they want a little bit of they want a bit of an atmosphere, but they would prefer the fan that comes, spends a lot of money on merchandise. It's like in England with ticket prices. Ticket prices went up in the 90s, and some directors of clubs, I think it was David Dean at Arsenal, admitted that it was a deliberate strategy. They wanted the person that came, spent lots of money in the megastore, lots of money on food, so they were spending in the stadium, rather than the guy that bought the cheap ticket, spent all his money on beer in the pub, and arrived at the stadium, didn't eat anything, didn't spend any money there, spent it all in the street, in pubs. And they wanted to push them out because they wanted a new kind of fan that were not going to turn up to the stadium drunk, but we're going to spend a lot of money in the club. So it was easier to manage the stadium, and it was also going to be financially beneficial to them as well.
I think there is something worth mentioning on this topic, because, for example, we were talking about Como's new ownership. They are doing something interesting down there, because Como, of course, the Como Lake is a universal, paramount touristic place. What they decided to do was, we are going to charge some proper money for the main stands so that we can get tourists to visit the city, spend some money on the club, and leave some cash for us. But at the same time, they are planning to make the Ultra section seats for free in the future. That's a very interesting model if you think about it, because you have both now. You have the people that bring revenue and the people that deserve to be there because they are loyal. So at the same time, you are reaching your goal of, enhancing the value of the football club. But at the same time, you're also enhancing the value of the loyal fans and the atmosphere that they can create for people that are visiting the stadium. So I don't know if this will fly, because at the moment it's not yet there, but that's what they promised. But if that works, I think it could be an interesting model for the future, because it is inevitable that bigger clubs, and we are yet facing this since years. Tickets are increasing, food prices increasing. Drinking a beer in San Siro, it's €7 now, and it's not good beer, just to say. That's inevitable. The future of football is going to be the football is going to be for the elite. There's no way out of that. But if you keep an element of loyal fans and you gift them their seats, making them feel like they are an irreplaceable part of the experience, I think we might find some common ground. I don't know how that can work in a place like Milan, for example, because of course Como is a small town. It's a different place. But if they make this possible in a place like Milan, maybe with the new stadium, and they create an environment where all sorts of customers, between brackets, can be happy to be there, it might work. I don't know how, I don't know when, but that's a start. For example, another initiative that they finally took after 20 years of protests is that they are going to lower the away sections prices throughout the country. For example, I went to Juve away this year for the first time since they built the new stadium, because for years the price of the away section was 90 euros, 90. That was insane. This year, for the first time, it was, if I'm not wrong, 40, which is still not pretty cheap, but for Juve Milan, I'm taking 40 euros. I'm okay. It's less than I would pay in San Siro to watch the game. So for other cases, they are stepping down to 20, 15, of course, depending on the magnitude of the match. But I think that they are starting to understand that fans should get some respect. And in the end, the ultimate goal is to have full stadiums. And if you take away the loyal fans, and generally football is not that great in Italy, you're going to end up with a lot of empty seats. And I guess that's not going to bring any money, because television deals are not that good in Italy as they are in the Premier League. So the only way to sell a good product for the Serie A is to have full stadiums and great matches. So it's up to them to find the best way and the best initiatives to make that happen.
Absolutely. I mean, in a funny kind of way, the lack of Premier League money in Serie A is in a way a good thing, because if you look at the last few years, it's been more competitive at the top. There's been more clubs in with a chance of winning the title, whereas in the Premier League, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, more or less, maybe Chelsea, but it's always the same clubs. Whereas we've had Atalanta out there, Roma have fallen away. Now they're challenging again. Inter, Napoli, Milan. It just feels, Serie A just feels, out of all of the major leagues right now, it just feels like it's much more interesting at the top of the table than in the other leagues. I don't know. Maybe the lack of money is a good thing, but yeah, it's important that the owners realize how important it is to have a good atmosphere in the stadium, because you want to be careful what you wish for, I think.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, if money is the goal, you need to play with the cards you have in your hands, and football level is not as good as it was in the 90s, where I think the Serie A was the best league in the world. You cannot attract the talent you used to attract. Now you basically get what's left from the Premier League and French clubs. So the only way to make it an attractive thing is to project a good atmosphere, even in the telly. Like, if I was somebody from Australia and I was watching a Serie A match, apart from football, I would love to experience what's around the pitch. Like, let's take South America as an example. I have been to different countries in South America and watched football there. You don't really care about the level of football, which is horrible, to be fair, apart from maybe Brazil at the moment, but still, there's no comparison with European levels. But you go there for the atmosphere. Like, if they would play Boca River in Milan, okay, yeah, it's an historical match. Maybe people would go just because they are Boca and River, but you don't get anything out of Boca River if you are not there. When you go to La Bombonera or to Avellaneda or San Lorenzo, those stadiums, you really get something you have never seen in your life. Like, I think when I first stepped into the Bombonera, I had tears in my eyes. I had never seen anything like that. And not because it's the most modern stadium, not because it's the best level of football. It's just because I have never seen a whole stadium standing and chanting the whole time. And that's something you cannot take on a plane and bring it to another country.
Yeah.
The pre-match experience in Buenos Aires is the best thing I've ever done. Like, period. There's no comparison. And even if you bring some of them, the people that can afford it, to another country, it's not the same. There's just no way you can sell that as an authentic experience. And I wonder why they are trying to do something like that when it's so obvious it's not the same.
Yeah, it's like with football in Buenos Aires. It's like I went to several games, but I went to La Bombonera. I watched a bit of the match, but hardly any of it because I was too busy watching the fans. And at San Lorenzo, I can't even remember anything about the game because I was too busy jumping around with the fans on the Popular. So
if you have been to the Popular in San Lorenzo, you know the level of neighborhood the stadium is into, the level of the stadium itself, which is, sometimes you feel like it's falling apart while you're there. Did you care about any of that compared to the experience of jumping around with all those fans? Like, it's impossible not to fall in love with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we had an episode on San Lorenzo. Will Dalton, whose book is out now. So check it out in the back catalogue where I spoke to Will, who's written a book on San Lorenzo. He's a Charlton Athletic and San Lorenzo fan who lived in Buenos Aires for a time. Okay, so Federico, what do we think then in terms of the future with this game? Do you think this is going to go ahead? Do you think there's any possibility it could be cancelled like with La Liga? And if it does go ahead, do you feel that this is the beginning? It's Milan Como now, but in the future there's going to be 2, 3, 4 matches. What do you think is going to happen?
I have to be honest. When the Villarreal-Barcelona game was cancelled, we all felt like the AC Milan one would be cancelled as well. Because when a major brand like Barcelona decides not to go for it, you maybe want to follow the lead. So far, nothing has really happened. So as far as I'm concerned, it's going through for the moment. I don't envision any immediate protests from AC Milan fans about it. So unless anything major happens, I would imagine the game will go through and will be played in Australia. If this will be the first of many, I wouldn't know, to be honest with you. As I said, it's not the first experience of Italian football abroad, as we had the Super Cup for more than 20 years now being played abroad. I think it will also depend on the aftermath of this match. Like, will the Australian fans be happy about the experience? How will AC Milan play the missing game from the season ticket scenario with us fans? There are a lot of variables that are not predictable right now that will make their future decisions a reality. I really hope this doesn't happen again for all the reasons we have just mentioned in the last 50 minutes. But I don't know. I guess this is my Italian DNA. We like to complain a lot, but we don't really do anything about those complaints. So it is what it is. At this point, I don't expect much to happen. The game will be played. We will go to work the day after, as we always do. There will be another AC Milan game in San Siro after that. And we hope that's not going to happen again. But that's where we are, to be fair.
Okay, so we'll have to reconvene after the game in Australia. Seems really weird saying that, but there you are. In Australia to maybe discuss thoughts on how it went, etc., in a future episode. Okay, many thanks to Federico today for coming on the pod and giving the Milan viewpoint on this. I was going to say historic, but that sounds too nice. This game that is set in our opinion, a pretty horrible precedent, but. We will see what happens. Hopefully, we won't have to reconvene after the match is played because it won't go ahead. But we will see. Okay, so join us again for the next episode of the Football Culture Podcast. And if you could like, subscribe, follow us on social media, etc., then that would be great. And we'll be back with a future episode very soon.
Thank you all.